The emergency beacon screamed into the void, its crimson pulse the only light in the endless darkness of deep space. Inside the crippled research vessel, Kethara, Dr. Zara Thane pressed her four-fingered hand against the failing console, her violet eyes reflecting the dying displays around her. Day 47 since the drive failure, she whispered into her personal log, her voice barely audible over the ship's labored life support systems. Hull breach in Section C is getting worse. The emergency patches won't hold much longer. Around her, the last survivors of her expedition huddled in what remained of the ship's habitable sections. They were Villani, a proud species of explorers and scientists who had ventured further into uncharted space than any of their kind before. Now they were paying the price for their ambition. Dr. Thane called out Kess, her research assistant, his usually bright blue skin now pale with exhaustion. The atmospheric processors are down to 12% efficiency. Even if we ration everything, we have maybe 3 days left. Zara nodded grimly. 3 days. 3 days until the 8 remaining members of her crew would suffocate in the cold vacuum of space. Just another casualty of the galaxy's indifference to mortal life. The Kethara had been the pride of the Villani Science Collective, a state-of-the-art, deep space research vessel designed to probe the mysteries of the galactic rim. Their mission had been simple: investigate the strange energy signatures detected in this remote sector and report back their findings. Instead, they had encountered something that defied all known physics. The anomaly had appeared without warning, a tear in space itself that had pulled them in with invisible hands. Their quantum drive had overloaded trying to escape, leaving them stranded in a region of space so remote that their emergency beacon would take centuries to reach the nearest Villani outpost. "Still no response to our distress signals," reported Nix from the communications station, her tentacled head drooping with defeat. "The nearest inhabited system is over 200 light-years away. Even if someone heard us, they'd never make it in time." But Zara refused to give up. She had led this expedition, and she would not let her crew die without exhausting every possibility. She activated the long-range sensors, pushing them beyond safe parameters. The display flickered and stabilized, showing the vast emptiness around them. Then something appeared on the edge of their sensor range. "Nix, are you seeing this?" Zara called out, her heart's racing. The communications officer's tentacles writhed with excitement as she bent over her console. It's a ship. Unknown configuration, but it's definitely artificial. And..." Her voice trailed off in disbelief. "It's heading straight for us." The bridge fell silent except for the steady beeping of failing systems. In all their years of exploration, the Villani had encountered only 3 other spacefaring species, and none of them operated in this remote region of space. "Can you establish communication?" Zara asked. Nix's tentacles danced over her controls. "I'm trying all standard frequencies. Wait, I'm getting something. It's somewhat crude. Very basic electromagnetic radiation. Almost primitive by our standards, but there's definitely an intelligence behind it." The main screen crackled to life, filled with static and interference. Gradually, a face appeared, unlike anything in their xenobiological databases. The being had pale skin, bilateral symmetry, and 2 small eyes set above a nose and mouth arrangement. Hair covered the top of its head in a dark brown mass. When it spoke, the universal translator struggled with the alien phonemes before finally producing recognizable words. "Unknown vessel. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force ship Indomitable. We received your distress signal and are moving to intercept. Please respond if you are receiving this transmission." Earth. The name meant nothing to any of them, but the message sent a surge of hope through the dying ship. Someone had heard them. Someone was coming. But as the strange vessel drew closer, Zara began to wonder if rescue might come with its own dangers. Who were these beings? Why? Were they so far from their home space? And most importantly, could they be trusted? The answers would determine whether the crew of the Kethara lived to see another day, or if their rescue would become something far more sinister. Chapter 2. First Contact, the Human Warship. Indomitable dominated the view screen as it approached, the crippled Villani vessel. Where the Cathara was sleek and organic in design, flowing like a living creature through space, the human ship was angular and brutal, all sharp edges and armored plating that spoke of a species born from conflict. "By the void," whispered Kess, staring at the massive vessel. "Look at the size of that thing, it must be 10 times our mass." Zara studied the approaching ship with a mixture of fascination and growing concern. The hull was scarred with what looked like battle damage, hastily repaired with patches of different metals. Weapon emplacements bristled from every surface, energy cannons, missile launchers, and devices whose function she could only guess at. "Dr. Thane," Nix reported from her station. "They're requesting permission to come aboard. The captain wants to meet with you personally." "Permission granted," Zara replied, though her voice carried uncertainty. They had little choice in the matter. Their life support was failing, and this mysterious human ship was their only hope of survival. 30 minutes later, the airlock cycled open with a hiss of equalizing pressure. 3 figures stepped through, and Zara got her first close look at humanity. The leader was the woman they had seen on the communication screen, Captain Sarah Chen. She was shorter than most Villani, but there was something in her bearing that commanded immediate respect. Her uniform was practical rather than ornate, and her dark eyes seemed to take in everything at once. Behind her came 2 others, a tall man with skin darker than any Villani's, his muscular frame barely contained by his uniform. The third was younger, with lighter skin and nervous energy that reminded Zara of her own research assistants. "Dr. Thane, I presume," Captain Chen said, extending her hand in what Zara recognized as a greeting gesture. "I'm Captain Sarah Chen. This is Commander Marcus Washington, my first officer, and Lieutenant Tom Rodriguez, our chief engineer." Zara carefully mimicked the handshake, surprised by the firm grip and the warmth of human skin. "Thank you for responding to our distress call, Captain. I wasn't sure anyone would hear us out here." "We almost didn't," Chen admitted. "We're operating pretty far from our usual patrol routes. What brings a scientific expedition so far from civilization?" As Zara explained their mission and the anomaly that had stranded them, she watched the humans' reactions carefully. Unlike many species she had encountered, they seemed genuinely interested in the scientific aspects of her story, asking technical questions that showed surprising sophistication. "Fascinating," said Lieutenant Rodriguez when she finished. "A spatial tear that operates outside known physics. We've encountered similar phenomena, though nothing quite that destructive." "You have?" Kess interjected, unable to contain his curiosity. "What did you find?" The 3 humans exchanged glances, and Zara caught something in their expressions, a shared knowledge of something significant. "That's classified," Captain Chen said carefully. "But I can tell you that space is full of mysteries that our scientists are still trying to understand." Commander Washington stepped forward, his expression businesslike. "Captain, we should focus on the immediate situation. Their life support is critical and we don't have much time." Chen nodded. "You're right, Dr. Thane, we can transfer your crew to our ship temporarily while we assess the damage to your vessel. Lieutenant Rodriguez believes we might be able to jury-rig a solution to get you mobile again." "You would do that for us?" Zara asked, surprised. "We have nothing to offer in return." "That's not how we operate," Chen replied simply. "No one gets left behind in space, not on our watch." As the evacuation began, Zara found herself walking beside Captain Chen through the corridors of the Indomitable. The human ship was even more impressive from the inside. Functional, efficient, but with small touches that spoke of a crew that had made this vessel their home. "Captain," Zara said carefully, "forgive my curiosity, but your ship, it's designed for war, isn't it?" Chen's expression grew somber. "It is. Humanity learned early that the galaxy isn't always a friendly place. Sometimes you need to be ready to fight for what you believe in." "Against whom?" "Anyone who thinks that might makes right. Anyone who preys on the weak or defenseless." Chen stopped and looked directly at Zara. "Anyone who would abandon 8 beings to die in the void when they could help instead." As they walked deeper into the human ship, Zara began to understand that these beings operated by principles that few species in the galaxy shared. But she also sensed that there was more to their presence in this remote region than they were revealing. The question was, would discovering the truth put her crew in even greater danger? The human crew worked with an efficiency that amazed the Villani survivors. Within hours, temporary quarters had been arranged. Their injured crew members were receiving medical attention, and Lieutenant Rodriguez was already deep in the bowels of the Kythera with a team of engineers. Zara found herself in the Indomitable's medical bay, watching Dr. Elena Vasquez, the ship's chief medical officer, tend to Irene, one of her crew members who had been injured in the initial accident. Fascinating physiology, Dr. Vasquez murmured as she worked, her scanner moving over Irene's dual-chambered torso. Redundant circulatory system, enhanced cellular regeneration. You're built for survival. Most spacefaring species are, Zara replied. The void doesn't forgive weakness. No, it doesn't. The human doctor's expression grew distant. We learned that lesson the hard way. Before Zara could ask what she meant, Captain Chen's voice echoed through the ship's communication system. All senior staff to the bridge. We have company. The Uari. Tension in her voice was unmistakable. Zara followed Dr. Vasquez to the bridge, where the main screen showed a formation of ships approaching at high speed. They were sleek, predatory-looking vessels that seemed to flow through space like metallic sharks. Bracari, Commander Washington spat, his hand moving instinctively to his sidearm. 3 heavy cruisers and a dozen raiders. Who are the Bracari? Zara asked, though the human's reactions already told her she didn't want to know. Slavers, Captain Chen replied grimly. They hunt down disabled ships and either ransom the crew or sell them to the highest bidder. They must have been tracking your distress signal. The lead Bracari ship opened a communication channel and a reptilian face appeared on the screen. The being's scaled features were arranged in what might have been a smile, but the multiple rows of sharp teeth made it look more like a threat display. Human vessel, the Bracari commander hissed, his words translated by the ship's systems. You are harboring valuable cargo that belongs to us. Transfer the Villani to our custody, and we will allow you to leave unmolested. Over my dead body, Chen replied coldly. That can be arranged, the Bracari commander replied with obvious pleasure. You are outnumbered 4-1, human. Your species may have a reputation for stubbornness, but surely you're not foolish enough to throw away your lives for strangers. Zara stepped forward, her mind racing. Captain Chen, please. We don't want to be the cause of bloodshed. If we go with them willingly? No, Chen cut her off, her voice firm. I told you, no one gets left behind, not on our watch. Commander Washington was already at the tactical station, his fingers dancing over the controls. Shields at maximum, weapons powered and ready, all hands to battle stations. The bridge transformed as blast shutters sealed the viewports and additional displays activated around the command stations. The casual atmosphere of moments before was replaced by the focused intensity of a crew preparing for battle. Captain, came Lieutenant Rodriguez's voice from the engineering deck. I'm reading massive power fluctuations from their lead ship. I think they're charging some kind of super weapon. Time to target? 2 minutes, maybe less. Chen turned to, her first officer. Marcus, can we take them? Washington studied his displays grimly. The Indomitable can handle maybe 2 of their cruisers in a straight fight, but 4 ships? He shook his head. We'd need a miracle. Then we'll make our own miracle, Chen replied. She opened a ship-wide channel. All hands. This is the Captain. We're about to engage a superior enemy force to protect non-combatants. I know this isn't our fight by any traditional measure, but sometimes that's exactly when fighting matters most. Show them why humanity doesn't back down. The response that echoed through the ship was a roar of approval that sent chills down Zara's spine. These humans were actually eager to fight impossible odds for people they had met only hours before. Incoming transmission from the Bracari, Nix reported from her position at the communication station. The reptilian commander reappeared on screen, his expression now openly hostile. You have 30 seconds to reconsider, humans. After that, We will take what we came for from your wreckage. Captain Chen stood straighter, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had never backed down from a fight. Here's my counteroffer. Turn around and leave now, or discover exactly why the galaxy has learned to fear human warships. The Brakari commander's laugh was like breaking glass. Fear? You are 300 light-years from the nearest human system. No one will even know you died here. Maybe not, Chen replied. But they'll know you died here. And when word gets out that the Brakari fleet was destroyed by a single human ship, your reputation will be worth less than vacuum. For a moment, uncertainty flickered across the alien commander's features. Then his expression hardened. Destroy them. Take the Villani alive if possible, but the humans, make them suffer. The channel closed and the Brakari ships began their attack run. As alarms blared and the crew rushed to their battle stations, Zara realized she was about to witness something that would either be humanity's finest hour or their final stand. Either way, she suspected that nothing would ever be the same again. The battle for the Cathara's crew was about to begin, and the stakes were higher than anyone yet realized. Chapter 4. Against all odds, the first Brakari salvo lit up the day. Darkness like a deadly light show. Energy beams and missile salvos converged on the Indomitable, only to splash harmlessly against shields that flared brilliant blue under the impact. Direct hit on their lead cruiser, Commander Washington reported from the tactical station. Their shields are down 20%. Return fire, Captain Chen ordered. All batteries. The Indomitable responded with devastating precision. Twin particle beams lanced out from the ship's main guns, followed by a spread of quantum torpedoes that detonated in brilliant flowers of destruction against the Brakari hull. But even as they watched the enemy ship stagger under the assault, 3 more Brakari vessels were closing in from different angles. They're trying to surround us, Washington warned. If they get us in a crossfire, then we don't let them. Chen's fingers flew over her command console. Execute attack pattern Delta 7. All power to forward shields. Zara watched in amazement as the massive human warship suddenly accelerated, directly toward the largest concentration of enemy vessels. It was either brilliant or suicidal, possibly both. Energy buildup in the lead Brakari ship, Rodriguez called from engineering. Whatever they're charging, it's big. Time to firing. 30 seconds. The Indomitable shuddered as enemy fire found its mark, but the ship pressed forward. Zara found herself gripping the bridge railing as the deck vibrated beneath her feet. 15 seconds to optimal firing position, Washington reported. 10 seconds to enemy superweapon discharge, Rodriguez countered. Captain, Zara said desperately, this is madness. You're going to get everyone killed. Chen turned to look at her, and in the human's eyes, Zara saw something she had never encountered before. Absolute, unshakable determination. Dr. Thane, Chen said calmly, even as alarms blared around them. My species didn't climb to the top of the food chain by being reasonable. Sometimes you have to be willing to do something completely insane to protect the people who matter. 5 seconds to firing position, enemy weapon fully charged. Fire everything, Chen ordered. The Indomitable unleashed its full arsenal at point-blank range. The lead Brakari cruiser, caught completely off guard by the human ship's aggressive approach, took the full brunt of the assault. Its shields collapsed instantly, and secondary explosions began rippling across its hull. But even as the enemy ship began to break apart, its superweapon fired one final shot. The energy beam struck the Indomitable amidships, overwhelming the shields and burning deep into the hull. The ship lurched violently, throwing everyone on the bridge against their restraints. Hull breach on decks 7 through 9, Rodriguez reported. We're venting atmosphere. Emergency containment fields activated, came the reply from damage control. We're holding for now. But the battle was far from over. The remaining 3 Brakari ships were regrouping and the Indomitable was hurt. Captain, Washington said grimly, we can't take another hit like that. Chen nodded, her mind racing through tactical options. Then her expression changed, and Zara recognized the look of someone who had just had a very dangerous idea. Tom, Chen called to her engineer. How quickly can you reroute all power from life support to the weapons array? About 30 seconds, but Captain, do it. And cut all power to non-essential systems. I want everything we have. That'll give us maybe 3 minutes of air, Washington warned. Then we'd better make them count. Chen opened a channel to the ship. All hands, emergency life support protocols. Sealed suits, emergency oxygen. We're going all or nothing. As the crew rushed to comply, Chen turned to Zara. Dr. Thane, I need to ask you something, and I need you to trust me. That anomaly that damaged your ship, can you replicate it? Zara stared at her in shock. The spatial tear? That's impossible. Even if we had the equipment, which we don't, the energy requirements would be. What if you had the power core of a human warship? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Zara's mind raced through the possibilities, the physics involved, the sheer audacity of what Chen was suggesting. It would be incredibly dangerous, she said slowly. If we miscalculated even slightly, we could tear a hole in space-time that would consume everything in a light-year radius. But could it be done? Zara looked around the bridge, at the humans preparing to sacrifice their lives for people they barely knew, at her own crew members who deserved a chance to see their homes again, and at the tactical display showing 3 enemy ships moving in for the kill. Yes, she said finally. It could be done. Then let's give these Brakari bastards a physics lesson they'll never forget. As the enemy ships closed in for their final assault, 2 very different species began working together on a plan that would either save them all or destroy them in the most spectacular fashion imaginable. The next few minutes would determine which outcome would prevail. The remaining Brakari ships were already beginning their final attack run when Zara and Lieutenant Rodriguez finished their desperate calculations, working with equipment she barely understood. Using principles that shouldn't have been possible, they had created something that defied every law of physics she knew. Theoretical spatial displacement field ready, Rodriguez reported, sweat beading on his forehead. But Doc, I gotta tell you, these readings are off the charts. If this doesn't work, we're all dead anyway, Zara replied. Grimly, she turned to Captain Chen. We'll have one chance. The field will only be stable for a few seconds, and we need to be at exactly the right position relative to the Brakari ships. How close? Close enough that if the field collapses unexpectedly, we'll all be caught in it. Chen nodded as if Zara had just told her the weather forecast. Marcus, bring us about. Put us right in the middle of their formation. Captain, Commander Washington protested, that's suicide. They'll tear us apart before we can. That's an order, Commander. The Indomitable turned toward the approaching enemy ships, accelerating directly into the teeth of their combined firepower. Energy bolts and missiles filled the space around them as the Brakari concentrated their fire on the wounded human vessel. Shields at 30% and falling, Washington reported. 20%, 10%. The bridge lights flickered as power fluctuated throughout the ship. In the distance, Zara could see the Brakari ships growing larger on the view screen, their weapons trained on the Indomitable's wounded hull. Now, Dr. Thane, Chen shouted over the noise of failing systems. Zara's hands moved over the modified controls, her heart's pounding as she activated the most dangerous experiment in the history of her species. For a moment, nothing happened. Then reality began to tear. The effect was visible first as a shimmer in space, like heat distortion on a summer day. Then the distortion grew, expanding into a writhing tear in the fabric of space-time itself. The edge of the anomaly touched the nearest Brakari ship, and the vessel simply ceased. Not destroyed, not exploded. It was as if that section of the universe had never existed. The spatial tear expanded further, consuming a second ship before beginning to collapse in on itself. The remaining Brakari vessel, suddenly faced with a phenomenon beyond their understanding, broke off their attack and fled at maximum speed as the tear finally stabilized and faded. The bridge of the Indomitable fell silent except for the steady beeping of system alarms. Well, Captain Chen said finally, that's one way to end a fight. Commander Washington was staring at the tactical display in disbelief. 2 Brakari cruisers, just gone. No debris, no energy signatures. It's like they never existed. The Spatial displacement field worked exactly as calculated, Zara said, though her own voice carried a note of amazement. The affected mass was translated into a parallel dimensional state. They still exist, just elsewhere. And the third ship? We'll probably think twice before attacking lone vessels in deep space, Chen replied with satisfaction. As damage control, teams worked to repair the most critical systems. Zara found herself looking around the bridge with new eyes. These humans had risked everything to save her crew, had fought impossible odds, and had trusted her with a weapon that could have destroyed them all. Captain Chen, she said quietly, why did you do it? Why risk so much for strangers? Chen was silent for a long moment, staring out at the stars through the blast-damaged viewport. When she finally spoke, her voice carried the weight of experience and conviction. Because someone has to, Dr. Thane. The galaxy is full of species that will take what they want from those too weak to stop them. But it's also full of people worth protecting. Scientists, explorers, dreamers who push the boundaries of what's possible. She turned to look directly at Zara. Your crew represents the best of what sapient life can achieve. The universe is better with you in it. That's reason enough. As the Indomitable began the long journey toward Villani space, carrying both crews toward safety, Zara realized that this encounter had changed more than just their immediate circumstances. Humanity had announced itself to the galaxy in a way that would not be forgotten, and she suspected that the repercussions of this day would echo across the stars for generations to come. But for now, they were alive, they were safe, and they were going home. Sometimes that was miracle enough. Epilogue, ripples across the galaxy, 3 months later. The council chamber of the Galactic Cooperative buzzed with tension as representatives from dozens of species gathered for an emergency session. At the center of the circular amphitheater, Dr. Zara Thane stood before the assembled delegates, her report downloaded directly into their translation matrices. The humans, she continued, demonstrated capabilities that exceed any species currently indexed in our databases. Their warship alone could have easily conquered our research vessel, taken our technology, and left us to die. Instead, they chose to fight against superior odds to protect us. Counselor Vex of the Antarian hegemony, his crystalline form reflecting the chamber's lights, spoke with barely concealed skepticism. These claims are difficult to verify, Dr. Thane. A single human vessel, defending against 4 Brakari ships? The Brakari are known for their military prowess. The sensor logs don't lie, Zara replied firmly. The Indomitable not only held its own but drove off the attackers using technology that our best scientists are still trying to understand. And you say they asked for nothing in return? This from Ambassador Korth, whose species had been dealing with Brakari raids for decades. Nothing. Captain Chen said that was simply how humans operate. Zara paused, letting her words sink in. Counselors, I believe we are looking at a paradigm shift in galactic politics. Humanity appears to operate on principles that most of us abandoned centuries ago. In the weeks following their rescue, Zara had learned more about humanity through careful research and discreet inquiries. What she had discovered both fascinated and unsettled her. Humans were relative newcomers to interstellar travel, having achieved faster-than-light capability barely 2 centuries ago. Yet in that short time, they had established a small but growing sphere of influence based not on conquest or economic dominance, but on mutual defense agreements and humanitarian aid. Their ships patrolled the galactic rim, responding to distress calls from any species, offering assistance without asking questions about politics or ability to pay. They had intervened in 3 separate genocide attempts, always on the side of the victims regardless of the political consequences. This is all very noble, Counselor Vex continued, his tone suggesting he found nobility to be a character flaw. But what do they want? No species operates on pure altruism. There must be an agenda. If there is, I couldn't find it, Zara admitted. Their actions suggest they genuinely believe in protecting those who cannot protect themselves. The chamber erupted in discussion as delegates debated the implications. The Galactic Cooperative had been built on the principle of non-interference, Species were expected to handle their own problems without outside help. The idea of a spacefaring civilization that actively sought to help others was revolutionary. There is another matter, Zara continued, waiting for quiet. The humans' technology, the spatial displacement weapon we created together, they've shared the complete technical specifications with my research team. No restrictions, no conditions. This revelation caused even more stir among the delegates. Species typically guarded advanced weapons technology jealously, using it as leverage in political negotiations. They said that knowledge should be shared freely among those who would use it to protect rather than conquer, Zara explained. They've also provided detailed information about Brakari tactics and ship configurations to any species that requests it. Ambassador Korth leaned forward, his reptilian features showing intense interest. Can this information be verified? Already in progress. The Hegemony Defense Force has reported a 70% increase in successful defense against Brakari raids since implementing human tactical recommendations. As the session continued, Zara found herself thinking about her last conversation with Captain Chen before parting ways. The human had been preparing to investigate reports of missing colonies in the Outer Rim, despite having no official mandate to do so. Why do you do it? Zara had asked. Your government, your people, they must wonder why you're spending resources on strangers. Chen had smiled, that peculiar human expression that somehow conveyed both sadness and determination. My species learned something important during our early expansion, Dr. Thane. We discovered that the galaxy is full of bullies, species that take what they want from those too weak to resist. Someone has to stand up to them. But why you? Why humanity? Because we can. Because we're too stubborn to walk away when someone needs help. And because... Chen had paused, staring out at the stars. Because we remember what it was like to be alone and afraid in the dark. We remember what it meant when someone finally answered our call for help. Now, standing before the council, Zara shared that conversation. The chamber fell silent as delegates contemplated the implications. Finally, Councillor Vex spoke. What exactly are you proposing, Dr. Thane? I'm proposing that we need to decide what kind of galaxy we want to live in, she replied. We can continue with our policy of non-interference, watching species rise and fall according to their own strength. Or we can acknowledge that maybe, just maybe, the humans have found a better way. The vote, when it came, was closer than anyone expected. The motion to establish formal diplomatic relations with humanity passed by a margin of 3 votes out, of nearly 200 cast. But as Zara left the chamber, she knew that the real change wasn't happening in government buildings or council chambers. It was happening in the hearts and minds of beings across the galaxy who were beginning to wonder if there might be another way to live among the stars. 6 months later, Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching as the rescue operation concluded below. The colony ship had been attacked by raiders 3 days ago, its population scattered across the inhospitable planet's surface. Now the last of the survivors were being brought aboard hospital ships provided by a coalition of species that called themselves the Humanitarian Alliance. Casualty report, Commander? She asked. Lighter than expected, Marcus Washington replied with satisfaction. The medical teams arrived faster than ever before. It's like half the galaxy has decided to get into the rescue business. Chen smiled. The galaxy was indeed changing. In the months since their encounter with Dr. Thane's expedition, more species had begun adopting humanitarian policies. Ships from dozens of civilizations now patrolled the Galactic Rim, responding to distress calls and offering aid to those in need. Captain, came Lieutenant Rodriguez's voice from the communications station. We're receiving a message from the Villani Science Collective. Dr. Thane wants to know if we'd be interested in a joint expedition to investigate spatial anomalies in the Beta Quadrant. Tell her we'll be honored to accompany them, Chen replied. It'll be good to work with friends again. As the Indomitable set course for Villani space, Chen reflected on how much had changed. Humanity was no longer alone in believing that the strong had a duty to protect the weak. The idea was spreading. taking root in species that had forgotten what it meant to help each other. The galaxy was becoming a brighter place, one rescue at a time, and in the depths of space, on a dozen different ships of a dozen different species, crews prepared to answer the next distress call, ready to prove that no one had to face the darkness alone. The age of human-inspired galactic cooperation had begun, and the stars themselves seemed to shine a little brighter because of it. The end.